Hi, welcome to the second session, the second conversation of the Cassandra Conference 2026. If you didn't join us or you weren't able to join us this morning, we are having a series of conversations here with experts and local community leaders from around the world. And this particular session is to demonstrate what the Cassandra Programme is seeking to do in Africa and in the Mediterranean, what has been done so far. And the most important thing about the Cassandra, not only the conference, but also the program and the series of actions that we've been undertaking since 2021, are the work of the local climate forums. Local climate forums is a very, very heterogeneous group of local activists in their communities, each of them doing very, very different things. We, Cassandra, do not create local community actions. What we seek to do is to support existing local community actions. What we seek to do is to promote local community actions led by excellent people such as those who you are going to have the opportunity to hear now. These are local activists. These are the people who live in the communities, work for their communities, and who demonstrate through their courage and through their effective initiatives undertaken totally selflessly in benefit of their local communities, the importance that they have, and the importance, as was in fact discussed in the session this morning, of how it is not the supranational institutions who can convert supranational strategy into facts on the ground. It is not national governments who can do that. It is not even NGOs who can do that alone. The most important thing are the local communities themselves. They are the people who have to lead the actions. They are the people who have to design the actions. They are the people who speak the local language, who know their neighbors, who know their communities, and who therefore can gain that most valuable of attributes, trust. Trust and simplicity. Simplicity of message, simplicity of action, and therefore effective progress in the fight against the social and the economic and the political consequences of climate change. So I'm delighted to be joined today by, first of all, Beth Isalijo. I hope, Beth, I've pronounced that correctly. If I haven't, you please feel free to correct me. Beth is from, she's a local climate forum leader for the Mara Basin Conservation Forum. They are a new group that have joined us. They have been working tirelessly now for many years in benefit of the communities around the Mara Basin in southern Kenya. We're also joined by Sala Silvano. Sala Silvano is director of the Alarm Green Foundation. That is one of our local climate forums in South Sudan, facing so many of the problems that that country has been unfortunate enough to have to confront in recent years. We're joined as well by Victoria Agahi Ujunwa. I hope again that I've pronounced that correctly. She's a senior programs manager for PAVE, which is based in Nigeria. Then we're joined by Abu Talib Sid Ahmed. Abu Talib is the leader of one of our local climate forums in the Sudan, another country, as indeed all of these countries are, heavily challenged by climate change and also by so many other unclimate change related crises. We're also joined by Enoch Esquimenta, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya National Association of Water Resources, and who is the person who is responsible for first bringing to my personal attention the question of sexploitation, first of all in Kenya, which led me then to discover that this is a worldwide global crisis that we have. And last but certainly not least, joining us at the moment, we have Francis Njuakom. Francis is a magnificent leader of the CDTVA in Cameroon. We are also, and I'm delighted to see she's here online with us, Denise Kavira Kadwali, and Denise is our local climate forum in Goma and in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This session, if you want to really hear about the realities of what is happening on the ground, principally in this session on Africa, which is where until now Cassandra has been concentrating his activities. This is the session where you, the audience, can interact directly with people who are working right at the forefront. These are the vanguard. These are the people who we, as Cassandra, believe are the people that can make the difference. And if we have enough local communities, such as these people who you are going to be listening to now, then the world would be a much better place, and that perhaps we would at last actually make progress on, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are propagated so often by national and international organizations and administrations. So welcome to you all. And let me start off by asking a question, first of all, to Francis. But as I've been explaining to audiences throughout the day, this is an interactive conversation. This is not a debate. There are no PPT presentations. What we want is to hear a conversation and a dialogue between all of our speakers, and then later on as well with the audience themselves. So let me open up the session by asking Francis. Francis, in your experience, what specific challenge in the communities that you work with has motivated you to become involved in your work? How did you start, and why did you feel that local leadership was essential to address those problems?
Thank you,
Francis.
Richard. Thank you, Richard. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Francis Njuakam, and I'm the director of an NGO in Cameroon called CDVTA. And CDVTA works for the promotion of economic and the rights of women. We also protect the environment and the ecosystems. We work on water management. And to come back to Richard's question, Richard, and hi, everyone. I was born and raised in a small village at the foot of a montane forest in the northwest part of Cameroon. I grew up in a community where women were not allowed to express their voices. They were not allowed to have rights to land and to succession. And these communities, there were problems of climate change, like increasing temperatures, loss of biodiversity. There were also problems of water shortages, severe droughts, and floods that were beginning to affect food security, local economies, and also at the same time affecting a lot of livelihoods and thousands of people in the society. And so what was important was that when I looked at the aspect of agricultural production, particularly farming, this farming was predominantly done by women. Of course, the women were not given the right to own this land or to say anything about that. Traditional rulers did not give the women the opportunities to speak out. And so when my father died, I realized that my mother had lost the land that she had. And so this was affecting many people in the communities. We decided to approach the women, to put them into groups and encourage them to become frontline local campaigners, raising their voicing, seeking their rights, and ensuring that they were listened to by local leaders. So the challenges that we faced were actually having women not engage their voices, but then it became important for us to make sure that leadership was important. To conclude, I like to say that communities are important in leading the process for development within their communities. Local actors are also important, and women are the majority within the communities, because with migration, young people leaving the villages to cities to look for jobs, only women remain behind with children. When it comes to water management, it is women and young girls. When it comes to agriculture, it is women. So it became important that if development had to be sustainably managed, owned, and sustained by the communities, we had to have action groups within the communities with women leading the actions as a result of enabling them to hold the community leaders accountable, and to ensure that development can be sustained within these communities.
Okay, thanks. I mean, that's a great introduction, Francis. Beth, can I ask you, how did you get involved? So, I mean, you're a teacher, if I'm not mistaken. You live down there in the region of the Mara Basin. How did you become involved in what the Mara Basin Conservation Forum does, and why?
Okay. Put my mic on. Just a minute. Okay, thank you so much, Richard and team. My name is Beth Magaga Aganyanya, a teacher by profession. I'm also the CEO Green Mom Cycle and the ambassador of environment in the Mara Basin. Oh, okay. Looking at the community, specifically where I come from, the Mara Basin, just like my colleague has said, women are very strong people, I believe. Women multitask. Women can solve a number of issues, including me. Within a minute, I'll be doing one or two things. I'm carrying a child, maybe when a woman is expectant. This woman could go to the river at the same time, fetch water. This woman would also go to the forest and carry firewood on the head, in Kenya that is, bring the firewood at home, carry water in a bucket, and in the evening would prepare food. I'm saying this because in the Mara Basin, around the Narok area, women are meant to stay at home most of the time. Women are meant to prepare food. These women are meant to make sure that their husbands are comfortable. There was a time it happened in my neighborhood, and I saw a woman doing all these tasks. Yes, she's strong. But when you look at it, there are these women who are learned like me, who would be able now to program what they are supposed to do and psychologically inform their mind that this is right. I need now to go to the river. At this time, I will now take care of children. And at this time, I'm now going to take care of my husband. But at times you find that these women, especially those who in the local community who are not educated, I felt like these women are underestimated. They are under pressure. They work under duress as they do these tasks. Now, it now also happened personally to me, environmentally. I had a very good environment when I started working and when I got married. I was so hardworking. I raised a home, a very beautiful home. I raised children. But something happened to me one day, unfortunately. And this prompted me because I knew I'm strong, I knew I'm learned, but I didn't manage this. At one time, what I had raised for a period of 17 years got to zero within a day. When one day I was told, leave and go. You are staying here, or what is here has nothing to do with you because you are a woman. I went through a lot of depression for almost 2-3 years, but I recovered out of it. Then I sat down and I said, if I, Beth, as a learned woman, I would get depressed after losing what I worked for 17 years. What about this woman who has never gone to school, who cannot sit back and recollect herself and stand up again and say, I can start from zero again and get somewhere? So it pushed me. And what made me so pushed so much were my children. Actually, me, I was strong, but my children could not hold it. Now I decided now to become strong and hold other women for them to become strong. Now I want to come to the Mara Basin, where these women and men also have another conflict in the environment. Those are the wild animals. In the Mara Basin, we have a conflict between the wild animals because of the poor policies of the government. At times you hear a woman planted a number of hectares of land, and there are some crops. And then after a period of time, you hear there were elephants who came and just destroyed the crops. And this woman was left, or this family was left vulnerable. This idea of climate change, this idea of environmental protection now became an issue. I had to leave the teaching profession and go into gathering women, talking to them about mental health, how they must stand, even if they fall, they must stand. Even if they are defeated, they must not accept, because they have a bigger responsibility to take care of their children, to take care of the nation, because women are strong. I realized we are strong people, but we only need to hold one another's hand. We also need the government to understand that given an opportunity in leadership, because a woman can multitask, a woman can go to the river and she is equally pregnant. She can cook, she's still pregnant. She can brush her children's shoes and the husband's shoes and still go and sleep and wake up the following day when very strong. Richard, this pushed me so much into environment. I program my daily programs, and we work together with the Mara Basin, moving from all over Kenya, looking at rivers. I want to really appreciate Enoch, who has even been helping us in water management and many other things in the Mara Basin. Why? Because we need an environment that looks positive, and an environment that will tell a woman or a man that tomorrow is better than today. Just in a summary.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, for example, this morning as well, we had a number of people who are not from Africa, and one of the main elements that we were discussing was the question of gender inequality and how climate change is exaggerating this. And I think that that's a very, very important point to see. And talking of that, and I saw that she showed support by what you were saying. We also have with us Denise Kavira, who I see is online at the moment. And let me explain to the audience that many of these people are talking from places where connection sometimes is difficult. So we apologize if there are sometimes technical problems, but at the same time, we're trying to give a voice to people who are really on the ground suffering these problems. One of the bravest people who I have ever met online is Denise Kavira. Denise Kavira is in Goma. Well, she's between Goma and in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. She was in Goma when it was attacked by Rwandan troops. She maintained us informed all of that time. She's a journalist. She has more courage than I think almost anybody who I've ever met. And I wanted to ask her if she's online, I wanted to ask Denise, what got you involved in local community actions, Denise? I don't know if you can hear me, Denise. I can see that you're online, but I don't know if you can hear me. Hi, Denise. We can see you. Can you put your microphone on? Okay, Denise. Yeah.
Hi.
What
Hi,
brought you
Richard.
into
Hi,
local
everyone.
actions? Lovely to have you with us, Denise.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. There are two major challenges motivating me to become a local community engagement. The lack of access of water and the poor management of hazardous waste, particularly the plastic waste. Also, the Democratic Republic of Congo is extremely rich in groundwater and surface water resources. Local community still lack access to quality drinking water. In many cases, people, especially women and children, are exposed to violence while researching for water. The absence of water, of clean water or water, have a lot of challenge in my country. The plastic waste cause many floods in Kinshasa, and people have not access to the water quality and drinking water. I think local leadership is essential to make ends of these challenges because community leaders know many issues of environmental and they understand local reality. They are the best position to give the solution, the natural solution, and especially a lot of sustainable solution. So I think the climate change is the big one of the challenge we have in our country. So there are many health people are affected by plastic pollution and water pollution and air pollution. Many of them is women and children. We work on this with my organization and other young activists in DRC to end this issue. And if we have an international community here, we need to him to stop war in DRC and give a time for climate activity to do himself what they think is a big or good solution for climate change or water issue. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Denise. And Denise, I would just like to say to the audience as well that English is Denise's third language. And I know that she was nervous about coming on and speaking in English today, but I think that her testimony from the Democratic Republic of Congo, with all of the prices which they're facing, not just water scarcity and water pollution, not just the plastic pollution, but also the social and the political and the armed conflict crisis, which Denise has had to face over the last year, really merits the fact that she had a chance for her voice to be heard today. And we're delighted to have you. And as you know, the Cassandra community, and you're one of our local climate forum leaders, we're extremely proud of being associated with you, and that you should be extremely proud about what you do. And I'm not trying to sound patronizing there, but you are an example of the type of person that needs to be heard permanently. There was somebody in the session before that said that the local communities, if they are not involved in the decision making, if they are not at the table, then they become part of the menu. And that is very true. And one of the things that we are advocating is that all of the speakers in this session, all of them who are extremely intelligent and dedicated and extremely brave people, must be at the table. They must never be the menu. They must always be at the table, and they, in fact, should be leading the discussions at those tables. So, Denise, thank you very much for that. Christopher, I can see that actually we've been joined as well by Christopher Waithaka from Korogocho. in Nairobi. I don't know if you can hear me, Chris. I don't know if he can hear me. I can see that he's here, but again, the contact might be bad. Can you see me? Ah, Chris, you're there.
Hi, Richard.
Hello. How are you?
Hi,
How are
Lodi.
you?
I'm doing fine.
So,
I'm
so
doing very,
Chris,
very
so
well.
that those who are listening, Chris, together with Brandon Okoth, who works in Kibera, Chris formed one of the very first local climate forums, i.e. an organization that we seek to promote, which is Coombe Green Solutions in Kibera. Chris has an amazing life story, which I won't go into now. I'll leave him that to explain that. But Chris, let me ask you as well, how did you, because it's an interesting story, how did you become involved in working for your local community? And might I add, so successfully, because Coombe Green is something that I make a lot of speeches in conferences during the year. And Chris leads an organization, is one of the leaders of an organization, Coombe Green Solutions in Nairobi, that is absolutely exemplary in why local communities are the most important aspect of our work against climate change. Chris, over to you. Why did you become involved? How did you become involved in local community action?
Okay, first, accept my deepest thanks, Richard, and all the audience on board. My name is Christopher, I'm the director of Combine Solutions. How I became involved in this community-led initiative. I've really grown up in a community by there was a lot of crime, there was a lot of using of drugs. Being I personally and most of my colleagues and friends, we have been born and raised by our parents by selling alcohol so that we can go to school. And growing in this community was not that easy, Richard. There was a lot of challenges. We started knowing how people being involved in criminal activities. I being the one. I've been involved in all types of business activity in my community, and I saw that was not the only way forward, because you find I had the community. Apart from the community, I had my parents, I have my sisters who I was supposed to look after when I grew up. And I saw this community only needs some change, a little change, and all is all about illiteracy. So the reason why I joined this community is so that the upcoming generation might not fall into the life that we used to live here in the slum of Korogocho. Crime rate going back in 2013, 2014 was so high. I've lost more close friends, like 50 close friends, and most of them were through criminal activities. My main issue to join this is to change my community and make it a better place where the youths can have a simple way life of living and having a clean and healthy environment. And also, we are not close to we are not far from the dam site. The Dandora dumping site is like 100 meters from where we are locally located. And there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of chronic disease cases here in the community of Korgocho slum. And I personally, I had this passion because I could not bear just seeing kids falling into drugs, kids getting raped by those drug peddlers and drug dealers. So I stand with one voice, changing my community, and also I had to involve some of the youths who are also involved in criminal activity. We did this by involving the community at large, having community dialogues with the crime officers, and also those youth who wanted to get out of crime. We didn't know that it will bring a great impact in the community of Korgocho slums, but later the community understood what we were trying to do. Also talking about the kids, the coming generation, you find that they didn't have even anywhere to learn. So we are able also to have a place where the kids could learn. And I personally, I had that passion because it's hard to see a kid suffering in 1 meal per day. His on or her parent, they don't have something on the table to put. Most of them are drunkard. So we had to start this initiative by involving the community, having dialogues, and knowing important of stopping drug by having forums on drug addiction, having forums in how we can take our kids to school, and also not forgetting combating climate change here in this slum of Korgocho and Nairobi society as large. The main reason which I fall into this passion is I've faced a lot of challenges in my past lives, and I saw it's best to give back to the community in an environmental way. Rather, I've seen a lot of crime scenes, botted features, a lot of things, and they're the ones that which led me to be part of this initiative, community-led initiative, where we can change our community and make it a better place, where our kids can live and thrive in a healthy and clean environment along the Nanobe River, which is very toxic. And for now, I think that now the partnership that you are having and the ideas of having exchange programs to different community-led initiatives really helps my knowledge, because I'm also keep improving my knowledge to keep my community having a health and very impactful livity in my community. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. I would just like to say this publicly, that I've had the honor to visit Coombe Green on numerous occasions in Korogocho when I was working in Nairobi for the UN. I've also visited them since then as well. And I just like to say that one of the reasons why Cassandra, right from the beginning, decided that it had to be the local communities, that they themselves led the actions that would really confront the realism of the situation, rather than bureaucrats and diplomats who come from very comfortable backgrounds talking about something which they themselves have not experienced. It was people such as Chris that convinced me that we were going the wrong way, and that's why we developed Cassandra as we did. So you, Chris, don't have to thank us for anything. In fact, nobody here has to thank us for anything. It's we as Cassandra who need to thank you. And it's people such as yourselves that we are seeking not to lead, but to support and to disseminate your actions, because you yourselves are more than capable of leading and deciding what is needed to be done. Chris is from Nairobi. Somebody else who's very much aware of the situation in Kenya is Enoch Kimenta. And Enoch, I've got a question for you. And by the way, remember, the panelists, everybody's being very polite. You're all listening to each other, but please feel free to express your opinions. If I say something which you think is rubbish, put your hand up and say, Richard, that's rubbish. If you think that somebody else on the panel says something which is rubbish, please put your hand up, okay? Just don't worry about interrupting what people are saying. Just raise your hands. And we'll let the audience come and interrupt you later on as well. But Enoch, you are extremely active as the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya National Association of Water Resources. Together with Chris and Coombe Green, you were the person who brought to my attention the question of sexploitation in exchange for access to clean drinking water from women. But what I wanted to ask you was a more general question, which is that you get thousands of conferences like the Cassandra Conference. You get hundreds of organizations writing official papers. You have national and international policy discussions all the time. But you, the people who work actually in the local communities, who live in the local communities, who speak the language of the local communities, who survive and have to put up with the results of climate change. How does your experience differ from those which are described in those supranational papers and those documents that we always read so much about? Enoch, how for you, what is so different between what is the reality, what you guys are facing every day, and the theory which we read so much in national and international reports?
Thank you so much, Richard. Good afternoon from Kenya. Good evening, good morning from wherever part of the globe you are. Richard, I think you have introduced me enough. I don't have to repeat that. And basically, my activism when it comes to environmental conservation was triggered by the photo just behind me. That is a photo of a young girl that I took way back in 2014, who is supposed to be in school, yeah, but because her parents are not able to fetch water for use for their home chores, they had to stop that girl from going to school and fetch water for them. And if you look keenly on the photo, seems there is no water in that river. The girl is digging holes to access water from the base floor. How clean is that water? How safe is this girl, as young as he is, coming from all the way 10 kilometers to this river, cover another 10 kilometers back home, passing through a forest inhabited by wildlife, wild animals, by unscrupulous people who might take advantage of her gender in terms of sexual abuse and all that. Audience, this changed and triggered my activism to talk about this. Now, when it comes to the international frameworks governing such injustices, yes, these frameworks are being developed, but does a local community member have a say? Have they contributed towards that particular framework in terms of that are governing our water resources, for instance? The answer is no. Why? I think it's just deliberate ignorance, and that is why we are ending up making very, very expensive mistakes, because we are not involving local communities when it comes to the design, the co-creation, formulation, development, and implementation of some of these frameworks. And again, look,
sorry to interrupt you, Enoch. Why do you think that supranational organizations, international organizations, who must be aware that there are many local community activists, such as all of the people who we have in this session here, all of whom can demonstrate very clearly the progress which they make? Why is it that national governments and supranational governments do not include you in the decision making? In fact, not only include you, why do they not accept your leadership? Because you are the people who know the problems. Why is that, in your opinion?
In my opinion, and maybe my colleagues can interject. That's quite a very good
and please,
question.
this is a question that I will open to everybody afterwards.
In my opinion, the leading cause of that, leaving out communities and do not consider the voices of communities in some of these initiatives, is because of one, the issue of corruption, for instance, whereby you find a government allocating resources to address some of these injustices that are happening, but they don't happen to reach on the ground. I will give you a practical example. Kenya is now has now two levels of government, that is county and the national government. And you find that looking at how the county government operate, they identify some of the solutions to intervene on some of these issues, give those interventions a budget, but you find at the end of the day that money is not reaching to address the problems these local communities are not experiencing at the grassroots level. So that is one. Corruption is the leading thing here. Number two is the issue of the governments are trying sort of to limit the space of civil society organization in the case of Kenya, whereby they don't really recognize the importance and the role of civil society organization as focal points for local communities. Why? Because they feel threatened that the more they engage us, the more we continue to unravel some of the bad practices they are doing within government. So that's why you find some activists like us, we are locked out in some of these processes of really addressing these issues. Activists, for instance, again, intimidated sometimes, really not to speak out some of these issues in terms of being threatened that if you continue raising this, then we will have to get rid of you. So many activists are experiencing that. And the main reason is that, yes, money is trickling in. Government is collecting revenue to address some of these issues, but it is ending up to people's pockets.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is an extremely important point.
Yeah, and that includes, sorry, Richard, that includes donor funding, because again, I really have an issue with donor funding because you find so many donors coming up, just set up a water project, for instance, elect or rather appoint a committee composed of men only without women, and leaving out all this without taking care of other issues, which includes what are the women needs in terms of accessing this water resource. And that's why, again, I raised the issue of water for sex, where women have to exchange a 20-liter of water with sex, which is very, very wrong at this era. And I hold this issue as a contribution of the donor funds that are coming really in sort of to address some of these issues, but at the end of the day, it is bringing injustices to the local communities.
I cited, I mean, you're talking about this exploitation. I cited an example this morning. As you know, I was there in Nairobi for a year with the United Nations. I was the head of the World Water Quality Alliance for UNEP. And I saw very clearly that 80% of money from donor states were going to the salaries of the United Nations, not to the projects or to the local communities that they were destined for originally. One. Secondly, with regards to sexploitation, I wrote a report for UN Women. And I wrote that report 2 years ago. Yeah. And they said to me, and for example, if you go to Korogocho, where Chris lives, there are signs which say, do not throw your babies away. And I was writing a report about this. And I presented it to UN Women. And 2 years later, I still have not received an official answer from UN Women, who live 15 and work 15 minutes away from Korogocho. Yeah? So that's a very important point. Victoria, I saw that your hand was raised. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not ignoring everybody. In fact, please feel free to raise your hands, everybody, whenever you want. Victoria, it's great to introduce you. Victoria, who works for an organization called PAVE in Nigeria. Over to you.
All right, my name is Victoria and I work for the Pan-African Vision for the Environment. We're an NGO and we're based in Lagos State, Nigeria. I wanted to add to what Enoch said, answering the question that you posed. I think one of the reasons why the local communities are not consulted for things like this is that maybe the consultants that the government employ for some of these things, I'm talking in aspect of waste management now, they tend to copy solutions that are being implemented elsewhere, maybe in one country, and they see it's working, and they forget to more like look at the local realities, look at the indigenous knowledge, what the people are doing that is already working for them. So this aspect of co-designing is not there. They just bring in one thing and they feel because it's working in one country, it's going to work here. You're not looking at the infrastructure you have available. You're not looking at the level of awareness that your people have, and you introduce this. And this is what I call more like the top-down approach to managing some of these things instead of the bottom-up approach. When you introduce this top-down approaches, that sense of co-creation is not there. The people don't own it. And what they don't own, what they don't feel like it's their own, hardly ever works. So the idea of implementing something you see elsewhere and you feel it will work because it's working over there, I think that is one of the things that makes the solutions not more like not working. So that is what I have to add to it.
I think it's such an important point. Ownership means continuity. Continuity means success. And I do think personally that national and international governments are aware of this. But I don't think that they, I think they don't want to be aware of it. I don't think that they want to bring the local communities to the table because they're always saying, let's bring the local communities to the table. But for example, the UN Water Conference, it was impossible for most local community leaders to get to the economically to get to the UN Water Conference in New York in 2023. It was also difficult for a lot of them to get visas to go into the United States to get to the conference. The same thing is going to happen when we have the UN Water Conference in Qatar at the end of this year. The same thing happens when there is any type of meeting that very often they forget that local communities, they can't afford to travel. They can't afford to travel to these places. For example, if there's an event in Sweden, how can somebody, for example, from the DRC or from Nigeria afford to get to Sweden and also to be able to afford also the registration? I mean, for example, I have attended a number of conferences with regards to water, and they charge you $1,000 or €1,000 to register for the event, even if you're a speaker. How can the leader of a local community pay that money when it would be much better for them to be paying the money to spend on their local community? And that is the reason why, for me, that's one of the practical reasons why the voices of local communities are not being held.
An example, there is this document that they were supposed to do an action plan sometime in Nigeria. I don't want to mention the name of this document. And the idea was that stakeholders are going to be consulted. At the end, we saw a document. There was no consultation with stakeholders, and we began to ask questions. It was written in the document that stakeholders were consulted from the CSO and the likes, the local communities, but there was never a consultation. So these things, they are aware, but just like Enoch said, the issue of corruption and everything would just let them do things the right way. So I agree with you on that.
I also think it's laziness. I mean, for example, here in Europe, we have what we call Horizon Europe, which is a way of funding researchers. And a lot of those programs include what they call citizen engagement. They don't engage citizens. What they do is that they have a meeting with maybe 5 or 6 members of a local population, and they maybe have 2 or 3 meetings in a 3-year period. That is not engagement. That is not involving anybody. That's ticking a box so that then the European Commission will pay the budget which they were originally designed to receive. It's a way of justifying the project, but it is not a way of effectively making that project relevant to that local community. Salah Silvano has very patiently been having his hand up for a long time. Salah, I'm delighted to have with us. He is the leader of our local climate forum in South Sudan. Salah, you want to make a point. I've also seen that Abu Talib had his hand raised, and then also that Beth has had her hand raised. So Salah, over to you first, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. Yeah, my name is Salah Silvano. I am a local climate forum leader from South Sudan, working as the executive director for Alam Green Foundation. I just want to add to what some of the panelists have said, especially Enoch and Victoria, and the issue of why it is not reaching the local communities. One of the aspects to that is I look at the issue of power imbalance. Take, for example, you have a country where there is a ruling president from another party. Then you're operating in a region which is being led by opposition party. So you may find the ruling government will suppress the local communities from the opposition party. So in that regards, there is no inclusive decision making. So that gap alone, defined consultation process will not reach to the local communities that is under the opposition leaders. So that political difference is already creating a very big gap to include local communities. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. No, I mean, that is an extremely relevant point. That is something which is seen not just in Africa, it's seen all over the world. These are problems. I mean, here we have representatives from different African nations who we work with, but we work in India, we're working in Asia, now we want to extend to Latin America. And these are problems, even in Europe, that exist. If you're not with the right party, then very often you're going to find yourselves having a severe problem. And so it becomes a political problem. And this is what we're saying. This is why Cassandra, in looking at just the environmental issues, we said, no, we're looking at the social and the political consequences of climate change. Because when the environment fails, then it becomes a social and then it becomes a political issue as well. And we cannot afford to ignore that. Let me pass over, first of all, to, I've seen hands raised here. I wanted to bring into the conversation Abu Talib. Abu Talib is from, so Salah is from South Sudan. Abu Talib is from the Sudan, from Dongola to be precise, in the north of Sudan. Abu Talib, your opinion on what we're saying here? I don't know, Abu Talib, if you can hear us.
Yeah, can you ask me the questions again, Richard?
Yeah, just to say, for example, the reality that you see on the ground, okay, that you're working, for example, in Dongola, you're working in a country that has basically been suffering a civil war now, infamously for the last few years. In fact, a civil war where there have been more deaths than in any other country in the world, but which is ignored very often by the Western press because it's happening in Africa. What is your opinion? And I would just like to say to the listeners or to the viewers, the general public, that Abu Talib is not by the beach. He's actually in the Sudan, but he's just got that in his background. But believe me, that is not Dongola in northern Sudan. Okay, Abu Talib, what is your opinion? What is the reality compared to what is described about, for example, your area in Sudan?
Yeah, actually, in Sudan situations, if we talk about the recent devastating climate change affected specifically Dongola in the northern state of Sudan region, which have been affected heavily by climate change in the last 2 years ago. It seems that these measures reflect a high loss and damage within the sectors of productive crops in palm trees and wheat trees in both of winter and summer seasons, which have been seasonal contractions or seasons downsizing, like shifting winter from 5 months to reach just 2 months in the years. For example, summers from the normal 7 months that been reached recently for only 4 months, combined with consistently with cloudy weathers in summer seasons. That's the matter that we are suffering there. We having a highly downsizing in product from 80% in each crop, reaching only 30 to 25% of the total amount that remaining by the end of each year, which is being made a problem within the economical systems in the state of Dongola, in the northern state regions. That what require from us working together with the local community to coming out to figure out that type of crop that might be able to resilient in the case of fastly climate change, specifically like what happened in the last 2 years. We need to work with the communities to into like a type of capacity building for farmers in the northern states, and that the thing that we are missing. We missing capacity buildings for our peoples to being able to being resilient against the fast climate change effect, so that they can being able to be more adaptable with nature-based solutions that fit the weather in the northern state of Sudan.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Abu Talib, for that. Beth, you've got your hand raised. And please everybody else, feel free to raise your hands whenever you want and say your 5 cents. Beth, over to you. Be better, Beth, if you put your microphone on. It'd be more effective. Do you have your microphone? All right, I think we've lost her sound at the moment. Okay. Beth? No, we've still lost your sound. All right. Beth, we'll come back to you. I promise you. We'll find your sound and we'll come back to you. But while we're trying to figure out to find Beth, okay, let me ask all of you, and I'm gonna start off with Francis, because Francis is somebody who normally talks till the cows come home. So this should be this so this shouldn't be a problem for you, Francis. Francis, tell me, coming from the community, okay, how for you does that make a decisive difference in what you're trying to achieve? As opposed to, for example, somebody such as myself. I'm a 64-year-old. I know I don't look it. I know I only look 40. But a 64-year-old old man from Europe, instead of me going to a community in Africa or in Asia or in South America or wherever and saying, well, what you've got to do is this. Okay? When have you noticed that being from that community, that working with that community, speaking that language, give me an example of when you've noticed that that has really been effective. And second part of the question, has there ever been a time when your local action has affected the attitude of a national or a provincial or an international government?
And local activists, who we call community volunteers, are also important. And these community volunteers or local activists are selected by the community people based on their level of respect for the community leaders, based on their knowledge of the community leaders, based on their ability to understand the culture, to understand the norms and the values of the community, the traditions of the people. They can speak the local language. They are used to the legal leaders. They are used to religious leaders. They are also used to government representatives in the community, living and working and communicating and networking within these communities. They do create a solution for challenges within the communities, bringing everyone together. In our approach, we say that we who come down to the communities are not experts. We say the community people are experts. The approach is locally driven. They are working together with the community. And so sometimes, like we talked about international organizations stepping in and the government stepping in. I will give two examples. An international organization stepped within a community in Cameroon with a lot of money, did not engage the local community in the sensitization, in the planning, in the implementation. When they built water points for this community, and this will be like an icebreaker for this afternoon's discussion, they spent a lot of money, built water points across the community, and 1 year after, when they came back to follow up and to evaluate the impact after 1 year, all the stand taps in these communities were overgrown by weed and grass. These community people were not drinking from these stand taps. They still send their children to go for 1 kilometer and carry water. Richard, colleagues, you are going to learn when they send a team for evaluation to come and find out why they spent so much money for a need that did not change the people's lives. The answer will shock all of us. They sent in a consultant. When he asked them, the community said, look, when this internationally came to see us, they just gave us water. They did not ask us what were our cultural needs, what were our traditional norms and values, what were our belief systems. We live in small huts and in small houses where children, grandfather, grandmother are in the same house. Now, the approach to put taps around our houses will be trying to depopulate us, not to us as a community to grow. The reason why we send our children to go a little bit far away from our community is because when they leave the house and they're fetching water, that is when we can have more children. Now, this was interesting.
Yeah.
Now, if this organization came and discussed with the people would have come together and decided to tell them, okay, do not place a stand tap in front of my house. It should be in the center of the community where at least there's a bit of displacement. Now, the government does the same thing. The government of my country built water projects, giant water projects in the 10 region, and all these water projects failed because they never involved the local community in the discussions, in the plannings, and in the management and ownership of the projects. Now, what is the point? They ignore local knowledge. They overlook the local challenges. They also overlook the local development processes. In our organization, we believe that the first thing to do is to meet with local leaders, to discuss the project with them, to let them select local leaders that will carry out the activities, they provide ownership, they provide land, and they participate from planning to implementation, to finishing, evaluation, and even reporting. We believe in grassroots downward accountability. So the people must have to actually say, this is the priority that we need. These are a line of our challenges, but we think farming is the first thing, or we think water is a priority, or we think economic empowerment for women is a priority. So I want to believe that we need to have a working together, locally driven approach that involves the community people at all levels. For us also, and I want to conclude here, is to say that the use of local community champions, local community activists is one of the best locally driven processes that actually ensures ownership, drives the process, provides innovation, and ensures sustainability. And therefore, if they are trained on leadership skills, if they are trained in technical innovation skills, and they're also trained in advocacy, this will drive change within the community. And for us in CDVTA, when government was not involved, and this is something I need to share, when government was never involved, we used people power, using women. People power meant that we brought them together in 10,000s, in 15,000s, to raise their voices in conventions. They selected leaders, including women, to go to the national capital and speak to ministers, senators, and even the prime minister. When they had their events, they invited governments to come. And the government knew that if we do not listen to the voices of these people, if I do not react in their favor, when it comes to time for election, I'm not going to be elected. And that is how government was driven down to the community, forced by the fact that they knew these people exist, they are important, and they should and must be involved in this development process. Thank you.
I mean, that's brilliantly stated. I agree with absolutely every single word. And I'm going to find the recording of what you've just said, because then I'm going to use that as my next speech. I'm just going to copy your words. Yeah, that's absolutely relevant, completely relevant. I see that Chris is still with, I mean, you were getting a lot of support as well from the other panelists as you spoke. And I just wanted to ask Chris, who I know is still with us, from Coombe Green. I think he's still with us, because one of the things that I mean, I'm talking about here, how if you've managed to influence the government, and for example, I know that Coombe Green has, and if he's not here, I'm going to describe the story myself. I can't see him online at the moment. No, he's not online at the moment. So I will say this for Chris and for Coombe Green, that they have been absolute pioneers in working in what is a very, very tough area of Nairobi in Kenya. And they have created this public garden. Basically, they transformed what was the area for drug dealing, yeah, in their district of Nairobi into a public garden and into a place of environmental awareness, working also very importantly on the condition of the Nairobi River, which, believe me, needs it. And they have been leaders of this, so much so that it attracted the attention of the national government of Kenya. And the president of Kenya, and I'll name him, President Ruto, went there. When I was in Nairobi, I wasn't there that day, but I had people of my team who did go there, and he went there. And he went there and he was accompanied by very high officials from the United Nations as well. And Chris and his team, the people who were responsible for that action, for that brilliant community action, they were not allowed to enter the area while the president was there. And the worst thing of all about that story is that the United Nations didn't say anything. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is something as well that we have to take into account, is that there are going to be people who have no morals, who have no values, and instead of supporting local community, will actually try and take advantage of what local community leaders are achieving every day, working in the most difficult of circumstances. I would just, before I pass to Beth, I just want to remind the audience that if you have any very brief questions, you are more than welcome to raise your hand, and you can actually speak to the panelists. Let them be questions, not speeches. We had one person who asked a question, and actually they took 10 minutes asking the question. It was the longest question I have ever heard in my life, and it's probably the reason why I'm bald now. But anyway, Beth, over to you, because you wanted to make a point here. We still haven't got that microphone. Beth, I'm missing your voice. If I could lip read, I would translate for you, but I can't lip read. Is there anybody else who... Sorry, Beth, we can't hear you. I don't know where your mic is. Okay, put your mic back on. Okay, so while she's trying to sort out her technical problems, I mean, Beth's had a very bad day. Somebody actually robbed her computer today. So we're just delighted that she's made so much effort to be with us. Okay, but while she's back again, put your microphone on, Beth. Let's see if it works. No, we still can't hear you. No, for some reason we still can't hear you. That is the problem with live conferences. That happens sometimes, Beth. But don't worry. We are going to be promoting what you do, so please don't worry about that. And if we haven't received any questions yet, either from the audience, so let me just say a few words before I pass over to my great friend and colleague from Rome, Tebaldo Benchiguera, who has an amazing amount of experience with regards to the questions of environment and human development. And my message to the people who are listening to us now is this, that Francis, Chris, who I think has gone offline, Beth, Salah, Victoria, Abu Talib, Enoch, who, by the way, please follow Enoch in LinkedIn, because he has these amazing publications in LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'll pay me money for giving it free advertising there. But that was, but I mean, really, really excellent articles that he places there. Denise, who is still with us from the Congo, and I'm delighted that she's still with us. These people, these are the people who we have not done anything for them. They are the people who started their work in their respective countries, in their respective areas. These are the people that we are trying to say to the international community, to researchers, to NGOs, and to donors, people who want to, if they want to put their money somewhere where directly it will have effect with local communities. My message is the following, and this is the purpose of Cassandra. Do not go through national or international organizations. Contact us and we will put you directly in contact with the people on the screen and all the other people who are leading all of the other local climate actions that come under the Cassandra umbrella. Our job is not to tell them what to do or to dictate what to do. Our job is to support them. And if you want to support them, either technically or economically, do not give your money to the United Nations. Do not give your money to a third party. Give your money directly to them. We will put you in contact with them. They will explain what they are doing to you directly. They will show you the results of their work and then send your money directly to them. Not to us, Cassandra. No, to people such as Christopher, people such as Beth, people such as Francis, people such as Enoch, people such as Denise. Those are the people who can demonstrate, and Salah and everybody else who works with us. These are the people who can make the most of that money. All right, that's basically an advertisement, but that is the message. I see that Christopher had his hands raised because he disappeared before. Chris, you wanted to say something.
Deep in slum where you can't even fly a drone. So first, I just wanted to add up what Francis have just spoken about. It's really, really burning within my heart, and that's a fact. You find that Richard, we have hosted His Excellency Mr. President here in our village twice, launching the Nairobi Rivers Commissions and also launching the Climate Works Project program, which have employed more than 60,000 youths here in our country. But while he was launching this project, during the floods, I saw so many elderly persons, orphans, facing through a lot while the evacuation process was taking place, and the government had promised that they will be compensated at least to move to another site, which it was not there. Coming secondly is about the social housing and the affordable housing. You find that the president came here and spoke about that, and it became politically, even which we had also had to risk our life because people in our community thought that it's like you have sold our slum. And with this, it's all about the government not coming with the solutions, having the public participation, involving the local community, involving the representatives, involving the CHRs, because those are the people who are living in the community. Also adding up to Salah Silvano, you have spoke a fact. It's political. You find that we thought that even for now, having a nice house, a big house, will be driving cars because the president came here to us due to the projects that we are doing here, restoring the river and greening of the riparian, which now government have used it as a piloting project. And I do thanks a lot, Cassandra, for it's like this is our voice now because here in our slums, in the local community, our voice is hard to be heard because you find there's greediness and there's a bridge between us and those people who that want to support us. I don't have much to say, but it's political and it's greediness, and we are here trying to do our best in the community. We know that the governments have a lot of funds. There are some NGOs that allow funds, and they need to identify these local communities so that those people who are not surviving, who are not living in a good life, they can get support to the leaders in the local communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christopher. I think that's a very good message. I think it's time to pass to Tebaldo. So Tebaldo, who has so much experience and he's been listening, and he asked me that he wanted to have the opportunity to listen to probably, in my opinion, the most important speakers of the whole of the Cassandra Conference, the people who are actually working on the ground. And I congratulate each and every one of you again. And it sounds really creepy and probably pretty stupid coming from somebody who's in Europe at the moment in Barcelona. But believe me when I tell you that I'm sincere about what I'm saying about the importance of your work and how much we believe in it. But Teobaldo from Rome, he asked me to be able to do a conclusion, and I'm delighted to, because it's an honor to have Teobaldo with us. So let me present Teobaldo Binciguera from LUMSA, the University of Rome. He's a PhD in economics, but above all, more than that, he's one of the most empathetic and I think most aware people with regards to these subjects. So over to Teobaldo.
Dear Richard, dear colleagues, buongiorno, good afternoon from Rome, Italy. Thank you, all the organizers and Eurecat, for gathering an amazing panel of voices from Africa. I am really humbled by all I heard, by all your expertise and commitment. I am half French, half Italian. In my very opinion, one of the things West European need to learn, at least a little bit to learn, is the vastness of Africa, the vastness of the continent, the vastness of many of its countries, the vastness of its challenges. Still today, we have not discussed national borders, transnational rivers. We have not discussed big dams or basin commissions. This, Richard, may have been maybe easier, but I think also a bit superficial. Richard, today it was really tangible, it was very practical. The focus was on local voices, local forum. Let me twice please take advantage of being based in Rome to meditate on one word. The first one is precisely forum. In ancient Rome, a forum was a venue, a main place or a square where people would meet and discuss issues relevant to the public, social, and political life. So we've been in a forum today, and all of you, dear colleagues, daily are creating venues. And precisely the forum today addressed issues which are relevant to the public, social, and political life. And if needed, we've been reminded once more that water, land, agriculture, health, peace and violence, social fabric are very strongly connected. I'd like to briefly comment on 3 points. The first one, the first idea, quite strong, was or is women. Women, victims, symptoms, at the same time voices and testimonies, and we all hope heroes and leaders. The most basic, I mean water, access to sanitation, is a threat because of rape, of aggression, of disease. What a major scandal for humanity in the 21st century. It is quite easy to mention Professor Wangari Maathai, recognized influential environmentalist leader in Kenya, working also for women and the Nobel Prize. It is also quite easy, I think, to mention Professor Elinor Ostrom. She was the first woman to obtain the Nobel Prize in economics, while many experts recommended privatization for natural resources. In her essay, Governing the Commons, she used the concept of common pool resources. She studied several cases, including irrigation, well, not drinking water, but still. And she highlighted several factors for the successful management of, she used to say, common pool resources by communities. Among those factors, she stressed the need that communities who steward resources at the local level must be recognized and respected in the broader context, which is, let's say, administration at local and national level. So, since we started with women, thank you, Richard, for your first question. Your first question was the very disturbing one. If I can refrain, it is, why should I care? And from the leaders you gathered, First answer was certainly why? Because of empathy, courage, solidarity, and altruism. To some extent, they decided to move from doing nothing to commit. But one of them from Kenya was a very strong testimony saying, I was a part of the problem of the crime. I am now a part of the solution. So there can be change, there can be rehabilitation. This is hope. This is bringing hope for a community. Another part maybe of the why should I care answer comes from education and greater awareness. And this could be my second point, which I call it voice. Voice, one of you is a journalist. One of you mentioned the idea of reaching out to the people of power. You mentioned the importance of networking and advocacy, including reaching to community leaders, religious leaders, and government. Voice, that may your voice be heard. And I here sense something quite challenging about the importance of traditions. Some of you highlighted the need of tradition and local culture. These will allow good solutions to be implemented, etc., etc. Others, on the contrary, is, well, we need to change or to challenge traditions about maybe women confinement or taboos or something else. So I pray for a wise discernment and for a lot of courage. These quite easily bring me to the this idea of courage and power imbalance, which one of you raised when discussing the challenging situation between what you do, what communities are doing, and government. Another speaker complained the fact that sadly government, maybe more than one speaker, is absolutely not considering civil society, bypassing it or keeping it into the shadow. However, this would be my third point called who and what impact. A widely commented report released by the UN University only a few days ago is titled Global Water Bankruptcy. I repeat, Global Water Bankruptcy. And it highlighted many links between local and global symptoms, conditions, disease, between local and global governance. It seems to be a silver bullet. Of course it is. We want good governance. Who wants bad governance? But once we've said that, what kind of governance? Who is involved? Who is included? Who is timely and respectfully involved and included? Can we really unpack the concept of subsidiarity, thus giving to those on the grassroots and communities all the liberty and support they need? You mentioned all the disasters which happen whenever a well is abandoned. Indeed, we need a holistic infrastructure, a social infrastructure, maybe laws, regulations, I don't know, tariff, a committee to have all that well working correctly. It's not only about engineering and the quality of the metal. It's a much more complex. However, this is what I want to stress. If we do have a human progress, apparently even the environment benefits. If we care for the environment, if we care for the society, then we may see the rehabilitation of the river banks. If water and humans are neglected, disregarded, or threatened, maybe the two of them together will suffer. I cannot refrain from taking a couple of ideas from borrowing from the late Pope Francis. In 2025, in his well-known encyclical Letter Laudato Si, he lamented exactly the fact that too often important decisions are made by persons disconnected from grassroots, by persons who reflect from a high level of comfort. And then the project failed. The project are not effective. A few years later, he wrote another document called Laudate Deum, that is, praise God for all his creatures. In this document, and I'm now reaching the last few minutes, he explained that God united us to all his creatures, and he invited everyone to a pilgrimage of reconciliation. This really sounds very much to what a couple of you shared, with the world that is our home. Indeed, he explained, commitment is an issue with my personal dignity, my values. But at the same time, the late Pope invited us to recognize that effective solutions can also come, he wrote above all, from major political decisions. But here is the problem, He pointed out the shortcomings of the international communities of coordination, the lack of attention to fundamental human rights, in a nutshell, all which you described in the last 80 minutes. Pope Francis invited the readers of Laudate Deum to recognize that, I quote, many groups and organizations within the civil society help to compensate for those shortcomings. Indeed, globalization favors spontaneous cultural interchanges, mutual knowledge and integration, which end up provoking a multilateralism from below. So I wonder whether Cassandra is not also about multilateralism from below. The demands that rise from below, wrote Pope Francis, where activists from different countries help and support one another, end up pressuring the sources of power. Pressuring the sources of power. Is it to be hoped that this will happen with respect to climate, to water? Pope Francis insists, unless citizens control the political power, national, regional, municipal, it will not be possible to control the damage to the environment. So thank you very much for your environment, for your commitment, for your dedication, for all you shared. I announced I would comment 2 words since I'm based in Rome. The second word I like to comment after forum is common, which comes from munus. So if we work in common, we share together, common, communion, community, a munus. Munus, which is an ambiguous Latin word describing both what one must do, such as a tax, a tribute, but also what one decides to offer like a gift. So the 2 ways of dealing with something, you see, a tribute or a gift. How does this apply to our situation? The situation of who cares for water, for climate, for local community. On the one hand, we must share that water, that lake, that river. We must share it. This is where we belong to. It is our context. We have no other choice. On the other hand, we can choose to act as a gift. We can choose to commit. We can choose to participate with dedication and wisdom to manage together that water, which is our setting. We have heard a lot of that. Thank you very, very much for this inspiring session. Thank you very much, Richard and all the Cassandra team, for putting together this fascinating panel. Best wishes in the spirit of multilateralism from below. And now, in 30 minutes time, please remain with us, since we will go live to a session organized for Cassandra by the European Economic and Social Committee. So prayerful best wishes from Rome to all of you.